Welcome to the Stream of Sweat podcast. Yet again, my name is Joshua Smith. I'm your host.
Go
with Ngandu Kasuku, who is my co-host. Today we're doing a little Super Bowl preview, a pregame for the Waste Management Phoenix Open. So we have some action in play. I've got a few contests. We got a few bets out. We're going to watch these come in. And hopefully kind of talk about some of the games or some of the picks we previewed for you on Tuesday. So welcome, Ngandu. Oh, no. All right. Well, you got a little delay, but I can hear you. So there's just a little delay to your audio. I don't know why. We'll sort it after, but we can make it work. So how are you looking, Ngandu? What do you got in play still tonight?
I've got Dick. That's what I have. Lots of other people.
Yeah. I mean, we were on Scheffler. I think that was the big thing. Like you and I had nailed Scheffler, but if you didn't have Taylor in this lineup, you're not in any of the big pools right now. So I think Nick Taylor, who had in my models had about a 1% chance to be in a winning lineup, to be in a GPP. Obviously kicking the shit out of everyone except for Scheffler. He's got a commanding lead. Right now I'm looking, he's 17 under, and they just finished the 15th hole. So they're teeing off on 16 right now. So it looks like it's going to be pretty much Scheffler and Taylor 1-2. I don't think Rahm can catch him. He's 3 strokes back they just have 16, 17, 83 holes left. So this is how it's going to shake out.
And he just hit one into the drink too. So
there you go. Yeah, I got it up right here too. So it's interesting, Taylor. I was going to pull this up. Hold on a second. Let me pull up a screen share here now. I wanted to show you. I don't know if you've seen this yet. Do you use Fantasy Labs?
I do. Yeah, I do. I use their optimizer.
Okay, I want to show you a new feature they added. Hold on while I add your video to the screencast here. So they just added this. Oh, watch my other lineups. They just added this in the last couple of weeks. See this simulation? I assume you can see it here. This perfect percentage. So this works just like my model does. So basically what they're doing, just reading about it, is they simulate all of these lineups over and over. They don't do it the number of times I do, but and they only do it for their canned strokes gained model, it seems like. But perfect percentages, how often when they create all the lineups, they generate the simulations, how often does that golfer show up in the best lineup? 23.692 times. And then the sim leverage, and this is something you and I had talked about just on our last podcast, they're backing off the holding. So they're basically giving you a leverage index. So when a guy is under a negative, basically he's saying that more people own him than he'll actually appear in the winning lineup. So that's a guy to fade. So this is almost exactly the model that I've been working on, and I hope that I can do it better than them eventually, but it's just really interesting. I wanted to share it with you. And the reason I wanted to share it with you is check this out. Nick Taylor, they had him at a 1.32% chance to be in the best lineup. But I don't know how you win without him. I think all the top lineups I saw had him in there.
Yeah, he's a tough guy. It's guys like this that come out of nowhere and win tournaments or place really well in tournaments. Something like that. I mean, I'm looking at one of the, I think my best lineup was a Rahm Scheffler lineup. I had Rahm Scheffler, Keegan, Cage Lee, Adam Hadwin, and Grayson Sigg. and this is in a 60K birdie. My best lineup is 115th place, and the guy that's in first place, he's at 548. I'm at 494. He's got Taylor.
Yeah.
Taylor's ownership in this contest is 0.71.
It's ridiculous,
So,
though.
yeah, I have seen this sim leverage, and I am very familiar with the concept. You know, when I was playing NFL, a lot of the NFL stuff for my NFL, like particularly showdowns, I started using a tool called Run the Sims, which is also very similar to what you're talking about, where you're just basically simulating lineups a gajillion times and then taking a look at all, the number of, the number of times that a golfer or in this case, football player shows up in the perfect lineup, and then basically balancing that. What I used to do is I used to kind of take a look at the number of times that they ended up in the optimal lineup and compare that to ownership to get it to generate leverage. The problem with all of these tools, and I hope that your tool is better. I would expect that your tool will be better because I just think that you're smarter than most of these guys, is that you don't know what's going into the model. You don't know how they're developing this. I don't know if they're using, I don't know what their, I guess to use a data science term, their priors are. Like, is it Vegas odds? Is it like, how much are they weighing like long-term strokes gain data versus recent form, all these things? That's been my reluctance with trying to rely on that, like anytime any of these websites, touts, whomever come up with these like tools or these like bespoke metrics, I'm always kind of like, all right, well, have we back tested this? Like, how accurate is this? Because I don't know if you are seeing the same thing, but their number one was Eric Van Rooyen, who's -3. He made the cut. He was $6,700. It's not bad.
Yeah.
I think who do they got up here? They got EVR. They've got Mullinax. I think he made the cut. Finau made the cut. Rory made the cut. Cantlay, I believe, made the cut. Although I kind of lost track of him. I had some of him as well. Oh, he did not make the cut.
No, he missed it. Yeah, he shit the bed.
Now look, and of course, this is one weekend. Golf is like high variance. So, is it really fair to take a look at 1 week and say, well, shit, didn't work this week, so the fucking model must suck, But it is interesting.
Yeah, the bigger thing than the projections is actually when you're trying to use a sim leverage approach, is it's really only as good as your expected ownership. So if that is off, it'll wildly throw off what you're trying to do, and you could really paint yourself into a bad corner. You need a really good sim leverage or ownership model, and I know there's a bunch of them out there, and everyone like peaks theirs like, oh, this is the best one. This is the best one. The more I look at them, I think like you could be really wrong on a few players, and it'll throw off your whole pool. So it's one of those things for me, more than like what's going into the projection. I'm like, what's going into your ownership model, and how good is that model? Because I feel like because you're operating on your projection on a curve, you actually have room for error. If you're trying to go on a leverage model where you're saying, well, now I've got a 5% better chance, that's not operating on a curve. You'd have to basically come up with a sim on top of a sim to make that, to give you a percentage of that. But in the end, you can only run with one exposure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it honestly, I more worry about their projected ownership. And we've talked about this, like I prefer showdowns. I think they're easier to model. And they never give you the ownership for the showdown, so you have to roll your own model anyway. But
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was like, if I'm gonna fuck it up, I'd rather fuck it up from my own model than using someone else's. But that's just
yeah. Well, but I have to tell you, like the reason why I kind of go back to the projection is because, and you're right. I take your point about the projections, and again, golf is high variance sport. I don't think that the projections are much noisier than like say projections for like Patrick Mahomes or something like that. Or much more stable. I would think. than a particular golfer's finishing position. Because if you think about Patrick Cantlay, who is, by all accounts, I mean, if he were an NFL quarterback, he would probably be, gosh, I don't know, Russell Wilson in his prime or something like that. I don't know. I mean, Wilson won the Super Bowl, but Cantley's probably the best. Cantlay and Schauffele are probably the best two golfers that have yet to win a major. They're both great all around players, and yet, any given time they can miss the cut. And this is a tournament where I would think Cantlay would probably have a good time. I haven't looked at his rounds. I haven't looked at like his strokes gained data to see if he just caught the worst of a bad wave, because there was some really weird wind going on at times this weekend. But I guess what I'm saying is I hear you, and I'm sort of like, I go back to the projections, but then I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. Like you said, in terms of like the distribution and then the variance, I guess it's hard to kind of, double down on that. But the ownership, in my experience, a lot of these ownership projections are pretty good at identifying. Because it's like, okay, if you're off by a couple percent, like if you're off by like 2% from like 10 to 12, that doesn't really matter. It's not really going to kill you in a golf tournament. Where you get into trouble with leverage in any DFS sport is when it's like, well, I have a projected ownership of like say 20, and he came in at like 10. That's where I think you can get into sort of trouble, but you don't see that much of a difference. In my experience, most of the time when we look at these tournaments and we're like, hey, this guy's going to come in pretty popular, generally speaking, they come in pretty popular. If I'm looking at, pre-tournament ownership projections from this tournament, like, yeah, we had Cantlay as being a pretty highly owned person, Morikawa being pretty highly owned.
Who is your do you have Cantlay's up right in front of you? Because I have it right here, what they had.
What I had, he was the highest projected ownership, was what I had, was Cantlay at 20.
Let's see here. Sure, it's in here somewhere. They give you so much.
One thing I should say though too is that with all of these tournaments, one other distinction we need to make is that with all of these tournaments, the ownership really varies depending on the tournament,
pool.
the contest.
Yeah, if you go to the largest pools, though, it should be pretty close. Like if you have like a 40,000 entry pool, it should be. Well, that would be what I would be comparing it to. Like obviously, there's variance in smaller pools, but like if you go to like a 40,000 entry pool and they're off by 5%. I mean, 5% when like the most owned is in the 20s. Like that's pretty high. I'd say 25% off.
Well, what I was gonna say was it's not even so much the size of the pool; it's the number of entries, because there can be huge differences, like literally double the amount of ownership in a single entry tournament versus a MME because of the number of entries and the number of
duplicates
and the number of duplicates, and the fact that people are going to be more risk averse in a single entry tournament than they will be when they can, spray out, spray out 150 lineups.
That's actually a really good point. I didn't think about that. I did notice, just call out to my man, Nerdy Tenor, like he's actually winning the two pools that I'm in. He's like,
of course.
Yeah, fucking guy. He's pretty good. What to aspire to, I guess.
The force is strong with him.
Oh yeah, he's a beast. He's pretty interesting. So anyways, I did want to say, so Cantlay just missed, by the way. I pulled up, I don't know if you can see the screen here in front of you, but he went 2 over in round 1, 1 under in round 2. So he missed it. He must have been, I don't know what the cut was, but it must have been right around there. So
I think the cut. Ooh, what was the cut? Yeah, let's find.
I could probably tell you here in a second. I can scroll down and find it. It was the cut was
+1 or even. It was even. Yeah.
Even. Yeah. So. Yeah, it looks like that sucks. He just missed it. He probably was 1 stroke off. So, But anyway, I mean, if you made it, yeah, whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, so he just missed. Yeah. That's another. Here's the other thing. Is like, and I just to jump back to this, and Rahm has just missed just missed. I think he just bogeyed that hole. Did you or do you have that up? I think he's on 15, 16.
Yeah,
Yeah, he just
yeah.
bogeyed that one. What a fucking
He
dog.
knocked one in the water, and that was pretty much all she wrote.
Yeah. Well, then he just had like about a 6 foot putt that he was 2 inches short on. So
Yeah.
tried to side door it. Anyway, so he's yeah. Your man Day,
But you know what? He was going to have to take. He probably was like,
you gotta
I gotta
go
do something
go for it.
drastic here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like that's one interesting thing in showdowns. Like day two showdowns. I wanted to ask you about this. This isn't something that was on our list of things to discuss, but just off the top of your head, if you have a showdown and you have a guy who knows he's close to the cut, does he take more chances? And if so, do you take that as a positive or a negative?
I, in general, I don't really focus on in round. Well, that's a good question. In round two, I tend to not think so much about where they are relative to the cut. I tend to think more about. Um, I actually tend to go back to my original to my pre-tournament assumptions
Mm.
because I think that sometimes people can sort of over-index on the results of one round. So I tend to focus more on that, my pre-tournament assumptions, and then I also tend to focus again on guys that I think can score well on a particular golf course because it's all about birdies and eagles and showdown.
Yeah, yeah, it is. You just got to get at least one eagle. You need you need more than one, but you need to pull some eagles out of there. Like you can't just. The only reason I was thinking about this, so is like if you get a guy who's basically on the bubble, he may end up being a value because he's going to try for those eagle opportunities. So on day two, only because
Yeah,
I'm just making the assumption, and I haven't back tested this. I probably could, but I haven't
yeah,
like I would have. And obviously, if he gets it, like that's huge for you for a showdown lineup. And if he misses it, that's fire. But that's kills you. But like that would be how you would get those differentiations. I feel like there may be some value in that for day two, just like there's value in day four, where you need to get guys that you feel like are going to move up into top places. Like if you like the
well, but here's the thing I would counter with that though is that like again, if we're thinking about scoring, I think seems to be sort of run sort of counter to um, making the cut. If I'm on the cut line, then I think that my tendency. I mean, I've never played professional golf. I'm not a very good golfer, but I do play. But my tendency or my thought process would be more conservative than anything else. I would not. I would be less apt to take chances, like you're talking about, because I do think going for the green,
yeah
and Fantasy Golf Bag is a site that I've been a subscriber to for years, and Drew and those guys, one of their metrics that they use is going for the green. He'll count how many times in a round a guy goes for a green. I will track that because I do think that also matters. Because again, it's like eagles and birdies, and the Eagles worth 11 points in showdown. So
yeah
it's like I don't know if it's probably worth a little less in full field, but like in showdown, Eagles worth 11 points. Other thing is like birdie streaks too. Like if you get a guy that gets a birdie streak in showdown, I mean like that's like printing money, And I don't know if a guy that's like shitting his pants about making the cut. I don't know. But again, to your point, that is something that's a good thing to sort of think about and back test.
yeah. Maybe it is a trait of the golfer. Maybe it's like the tin cup trait. Like is this guy gonna go for it? Like all out. Like no matter what happens, I'm gonna drop and try to get this birdie. I'm I'm just looking for other edges or other angles. I was really trying to vet this with you. So it is
I
probably
think
true. I think most sports players like just will play their game and then hope everyone else fucks up. I think that is the most common trait is like, here's how I play it. I'm going to play it the same way I always play it. I'm not going to like ad lib. So you're probably right. But I bet there are guys that dump the tank, like
if if I were you, if I were a data scientist and I was looking for an edge in showdown, I would be looking to build my own ownership projections because that to me is the one source of information that is not readily available and people do not generally disseminate. You can kind of read between the lines and kind of figure out, okay, well, this guy's terrible at putting in front round one. He's hitting well, tee to green. Guys are generally going to, coalesce around a player like that. If the guy shit the bed in the first round, they're generally going to fade them. And so you can kind of eyeball it. But in my experience, if you could really nail down showdown projections, like that is definitely an edge. And some sites do it, most sites don't do it actually. Most sites that I know do not generate showdown projections. I'm sure it's a time issue because sometimes the turnaround can be pretty tough.
You can get projections, just not ownership projections. But yeah, that is correct, like A1 thing. So like I'd mentioned before, like right now my approach is just to get ideal owner, like that first one, the simmed ownership, like your perfect lineup projection. How often do they end up in that perfect lineup? What's interesting about it is, and I was talking to my friend, another friend of mine that works in sports that builds similar type of models. It's not a normal curve because like for showdown it can be more normal, but in obviously in full game, like full tournament, if you don't make the first 2 rounds, if you make the cut, your projection shoots up sharply. So it's not bimodal where it's like 2 humps, but it is like it's obviously right skewed, and it's basically how good you are is where that acceleration point starts. So like better golfers have a low probability of cut, so it looks more of a little bump and then a shoot up, and then bad golfers will basically not be as good, and they'll tend to shoot over more. And it's like when you're sampling that, like you preach this all the time. It's like I really just start with, let me identify the golfers that are going to make the cut, and then I'll go from there. Because if you don't make the cut, like that lineup I had, if I just would have substituted Grillo for Taylor, I would have had a top lineup. Like that, the rest of the lineup killed. That lineup's still winning like $12 with everyone else that I had mentioned. So I had the other pieces right. It was just my scrub. It wasn't right.
Well, that's how it works. I mean,
right.
I've got, I've got like I said, I've got a Rahm Scheffler lineup, and I had Grayson Sigg, who I played at 6,400. What was Nick Taylor's
ownership?
How much was he? What was his salary?
He's like 6,500. I could pull it up. I got it right here. Yeah, he was 6,500.
Yeah, I mean, so that is like I got this lineup's got Hadwin, Bradley, Scheffler, Rahm. I take out Sig and I throw in Nick Taylor, who's because I'm down 48, I'm down 54 points. What's the difference between? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not. The guy that's in first place in the tournament in which I have my best player. Yeah, I mean the difference between Sig and Taylor is 43. So now he also played. Okay, I got KH Lee at 7,500. That didn't really turn out well for me. So I guess I would have needed to pivot to someone else there too. But like anyway, my point is that like you're right, but I mean it's really hard to find that one.
Yeah,
it's so hard to find.
Well, that's the thing I was saying is like this guy is really it'll be a very rare simulation. Like my exposure to him, I didn't even have him on my list to have exposure because you have to pick some. You can't have everyone, all 130 whatever guys. So I guess you could, but it's like it's hard to actually. You might have one lineup that would have that if you can only put in 150. So it's like it's just like that type of guy really makes it a random event. So it is.
Do you think so? How many players do you input into this model?
I put the whole field in.
Oh, you do put the whole field in.
Yeah,
but
and then it's pretty simple. I just put the whole field in. I run a simulation for every combination of lineup that I feel like is like I don't have a bunch of like 6,500 guys. Like there's no lineup that's all 6,500 guys. I basically build all the lineups that are within like $1,000 or whatever. I'll nudge it based on the size of the field, so that I don't have so many lineups to simulate through. And then when I run the sim for every player. So the player has a projection and they have a what's called a prior, like a distribution of what I think they're going to behave like. And then I basically run the simulation over and over, and I simulate every player, get their score. And then I say, okay, these are the lineups they're in. Here's how that lineup would have fared. Here was the best lineup from Sim 1. So it's like every player, every lineup, and then I get a result. And then I do that usually 10,000 times. And once I have all of those, I can say John Rahm was in the perfect lineup, in the winning lineup 25% of the time. So my exposure to John Rahm should be 25%. I do that for everybody, basically calculate what their exposure should be. And then I randomly sample out of those lineups to represent that ideal holding as best I can. So starting with the best guys, I make sure I have 25% of the top guys, or whatever their number was, and then it goes down. And so I'm working through that now. Like the next piece of it would be incorporating ownership. So once I have, if I understand what the ownership probably is going to be, I can then calculate my own, my own leverage model to say, well, John Rahm should be 25% owned. It looks like the market's going to own him 30%, so I should fade him a certain percentage because he's over-owned. Like too many people have him. He's showing up too much. And you would see a significant edge if you did that.
Could you go back to what you said before about within 1,000? You said something about within 1,000. What did you mean?
The salary cap. So, like, obviously, when I do all the salaries, I make all the lineups that are within at least $1,000 of the salary cap for the DFS lineup. Like,
okay,
yeah.
So, I think
that's
one
too
thought
low?
experiment. No, I was going to say the other way.
Oh,
I was going to say, like, maybe you should go the other way. Like, maybe you should make the minimum salary like 47.5 or something like that. Or maybe you should adjust that depending on the field. In this situation, I would think that you don't want to try to account for a black swan event like Nick Taylor contending at the Waste Management in essentially a major. Because if you think about like who else is in this field, it is kind of insane that like he's, it's like if you look at the leaderboard, it's like which one of these things is not like the other. Even Jason Day has won a major. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's
he came
like
on
Scheffler.
like gangbusters today. By the way, if you had him in Showdown today, you did well. Like he came on really strong. But
yeah, 65. Yeah. So. So anyway, I was, maybe this tournament's a bad example, but like I do think that in some of these weaker fields, I would throttle that down to like 4,700 because it would seem to me that you might be able to find some real wonky lineups that just naturally, without even factoring in ownership, naturally differentiate from one another,
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I could look at that. It wouldn't be. The problem is, like, the more lineups you have to process, the
longer it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's probably some I'm like not an amazing optimization person. There's a lot of opportunity in my model to make it faster. Right now, I'm just trying to get it right, and then you make it fast, that kind of thing. But yeah. So now,
so Taylor just lipped one out, and now Scheffler's
killing it. Yeah, one hole left here. So as we're kind of teeing this up here, it looks like I'm going to win a whopping $12. Just so you know, how did your sports bets land? Did you hit anything?
I think that my sports bets are kind of like my DFS bets. I mean, I had really. Yeah, I think my each way bets. I mean, my best. Well, let's see here. I got Cantlay, Fitzpatrick, Bradley, and Fowler. So
you didn't have Taylor. You didn't have Taylor to win for segment.
I did not have Taylor, and those are each way bets. So yeah, none of those guys. I mean, you could light it on fire. Spieth Hatton right now. It's Spieth Hatton, M Burns, Day. Yeah, I thought about Day. Fowler was close though. Fowler was T10. If you somehow, Fowler was T10. He was finished 10th. One more birdie and Fowler would have hit the each way, but Yeah, that's it. That's it. I yeah my bets were dust pretty much.
They all can't. World needs ditch diggers too, Nandu. Let me tell you. So
The fingers too. Cam Young, the one, like overall, like I thought that I had a pretty good sense of, I felt pretty good about my exposures. I think I sent them to you, on Friday, and I felt pretty good about them, but. They just none of these guys got home. The only guy that got home, if I think about my highest exposed guys, Cam Young was pretty much dog shit. Rom played great. Kim faded. Morikawa missed the cut. Bradley faded. Montgomery missed the cut. Lee faded. Hoagie missed the cut. Thompson missed the cut. Nesmith ejected on like day one.
what happened with
Buckley,
that?
I have no idea, dude. I don't know where he finished.
Like
He was like, last I checked, he was like +7. Oh, he finished +4. So I got that going for me. And look at the leaderboard. There he is, sitting nice and cozy, right next to Taylor Montgomery, who was my fourth or fifth most exposed player. So like all these guys shit the bed. So
Yeah.
it's no surprise that like it's interesting when I look at like I look at my sheet for the week and thinking about this. One thing that stood out to me right when the tournament began was that Scheffler was probably going to be the lowest owned of all these guys up top, and he was. And I remember listening to Pat Mayo and Tyler Tambolini on Wednesday, their Wednesday show. They're talking about ownership, all this other stuff. They build this lineup and they just talk through all these different players. And it's a really interesting conversation about like different players. And I feel like in passing, I'm pretty sure in passing, Tambo was like, he was like, well, who knows? Scheffler, a lot of guys aren't going to go back to him. A lot of guys don't like playing the guy that won last year. But we saw last year several guys won back-to-back tournaments. And I remember thinking to myself, yes, you are absolutely right. People are not going to want to play, Scheffler because he won last year. And, look at him.
That's a poor pattern to try to think that is real. Like
it's true though.
Yeah, people think that like that's one of those things where humans they try to avoid a pattern, but it's like, well, it's like a roulette wheel won't go black 6 times in a row. I'm like, it's just as likely to go black this time as it was last time. Like just every spin is its own. You know what I mean? Like you're putting weight on something that you shouldn't put weight on. So
but I mean, and look, I think if he ended up being 17% owned, so it's not like no one played him, right? But Rahm had more ownership than him. Rory had slightly more ownership than him. Finau was less owned. Xander about the same. It's really, these tournaments are really tough because you got 4 or 5 guys up top, and you're like, I can make an argument for each and every single one of these players. But you're right. Yeah, it's a pattern. It's blackjack is a very good, or not blackjack, but roulette is a very good example of like how people think like, oh yeah, I can't play a guy because he, it's not going to hit again, blah 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 blah, and then sure shit they hit again. So, it's looking like he's about to hit this. So we'll see.
Yeah. So you got a Super Bowl pick before we're wrapping up here. So they just teed off on 18. So Scheffler just put one in. Looks like he's sitting pretty on the approach there. What's your Super Bowl pick? While I got you, while we're waiting for this to wrap up.
Patrick Mahomes is my son. I feel like I've been a fan of that guy. I feel like it's been my guy since he got into the league. And I really like to root for him. I hate rooting against him, but I have believed for a while that the Eagles are the most balanced team in the league. And as long as Jalen Hurts is healthy and able to, put some pressure on that defense with his legs a little bit, I just don't think they have a lot of holes. And I don't have a lot of faith. And their receivers are so great. Smith and Brown.
Two killer threats, right?
Oh, man. So I'm going with the Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly.
All right, man. Well, I'm head up against you, so I'm not betting against Mahomes. I feel like in this game, like the Chiefs defense is not metrically great, but they also have played in a game where they didn't a season where they didn't really have to be because they would score
Yeah.
so many points.
Yep.
So as long as he has someone to throw to, I feel like Mahomes will, and I feel like he's going to be much better than he was when he was playing on one leg last in the championship game. I'm taking the Chiefs, but I agree it's probably close. I had them as like a 55-45 type of bet. I
Yeah.
I didn't put any money on it because I wasn't that confident in that spread or the money line. I was hoping it opened up locally at 2 points where Chiefs were getting two, and it moved against the way I wanted it to go. I was hoping if it got to 3 points, which they would never let you have an even number in the Super Bowl, which is probably why I didn't go that way. But if it
Hmm.
got to 3 points, I was going to go heavy on the Chiefs, but it never did. But I feel like the Chiefs will pull it out. I did play a bunch of, and this is not, I didn't use a model for these. It's just my own intuition. I played a bunch of a bunch of lineups with the Chiefs, just doing the one game lineups. But
Hmm.
here's a question for you: while we're watching this, while they walk down to their ball here, when you play these one game lineups, who do you play on the other team? Do you play like a running back or wide receiver? So let's say you have a heavy Chiefs one. Do you go all Chiefs, or I guess in your case all Eagles, and then play one token Chief, or or do you try to get in stacks? Like what do you try to do? You try to match a game script?
I try to match a game strip. In
Yeah,
Showdown, I try to get the lineup to tell a story. And so with Chiefs, in my opinion, I think that it's going to be a good game. I think it should be high scoring. And so I think that depending on what I don't know, I haven't even played any or looked at any of the pricing at all. So I have no idea like who's where. But I feel like, yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like if I were playing a lineup and there's still, I mean, how many? There's still. Oh, they just opened up another one, which is actually not that many guys. You know, I haven't looked at any ownership, but I feel like, you know, in terms of value, I'd be looking at the ownership to figure out like where to be, you know, where to bob and weave. I'd probably lean on the team that I'd probably lean on Mahomes, Kelsey, and some help from somebody else, maybe
yeah.
like a Juju or someone
Juju
like
was
that. You know,
like he was 6,000 or cheaper. I forget it was really low, so I went
yeah,
Juju, and then I played one lineup with Mahomes as the captain and one with Kelsey as the captain. Was basically how I went
yeah.
about it, and then I just sprinkled in other guys. And then for the Eagles, I played their kicker because I went heavy on Chiefs and just played all their players that I thought would get touches, and then plugged in the kicker for the Eagles because I'm like, well, I mean, I got to play one of them. I tried to
Why
get
the
one of
hell
the
not? You never
receivers, but
know.
here's the problem with the Eagles with that captain model is because they have two huge beast receivers. Everyone else is except for Goddard, maybe you could get him in, but like the rest of the guys aren't seeing shit for touches. It's all about touches. Like if you aren't getting
Right,
opportunities, they're not going down
right,
there and giving like the slappy the ball to punch it in the end zone. It's not going to happen
right,
very often.
right.
But yeah, they're like so top heavy at receiver. It's really hard to find a value receiver. And in running backs, like you have one guy who you can really trust, and then the rest of them are third down dudes. Like you're not gonna. Then maybe they'll get something crazy, but neither. Like I guess the Chiefs have a more balanced running back attack, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, there we
We'll
go.
see.
Yeah, we'll see. So, what do you got? Any previews for next week? So we have the that's that
The
California tournament,
Genesis Riviera.
Genesis, with my man Tigger showing up.
That's right. Tiger will be back. So the question will be to Tiger or not to Tiger.
Right.
Um, I think that I could not bear the thought of Tiger somehow pulling a victory out of his arse and me not having any exposure to him. So I think that I'll probably play some sort of like Tiger lineup and like just one random like $5 Tiger YOLO lineup,
You love the
and
YOLO
call it a
lineup, don't
day.
you? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just kind of call it a day, just so I can share in the love if he somehow miraculously beats back Father Time. But last year I was looking at, it's so funny you asked me that question because I was looking at Genesis, thinking about whether or not this might come up in a podcast. And I look at the winner from last year. I'm like, fuck, man, Joaquin Neiman won this thing last year, and now he's playing on fucking Live.
Wow.
I saw some fucking bro at Whole Foods today. That's where I've been. That's where I was before I got here. That's why I got in here late. Had a fucking Live hoodie on. Guy couldn't have been more older than 30.
Dude, that's like, I want to get one because I feel like it's fucking, it's like such a, like a counterculture
I'm like, I hope you got
move.
That for free.
It's a counterculture move. Like, it's like wearing an Expos hat, like it's fucking hipster move of golf. Like,
yes, all of that. I seriously wanted to just go fucking like take a broom or something, just hit him in the fucking kneecaps or something. Like, fucking Live sucks. They're a fucking joke.
What channel are they on?
Sorry.
Again? What station are they on? They have a weird
CW
network.
or something like that. Yeah, CW or something.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if there's value there, I'll bet them. Like, I'm not opposed to making money. As my man, as the guy said in The Wire, he's like, shit, if he's giving money away, I'm gonna take it. Like,
money be green.
Have dead presidents on it. He ain't no president.
He ain't no Hamilton. Ain't no president.
The only way you get your ass on legal tender is if you is a president.
Michael B. Jordan, dude, prophetic as always. I'm just saying, he ain't no president.
Secretary of Treasury.
Oh man. So yeah, I mean, so Neiman won it last year. Homa obviously won it 2 years ago, and he grew up around there and grew up in the idolizing, playing that. I think he grew up around there, idolized Tiger, idolized his tournament, and he won 2 years ago. It was a great story. I think it'll be somewhat similar to there'll be some similarities here in like ball strikers, at least from my perspective. But I think, if I remember correctly, the grass is kind of funky there, and so it takes a little bit of
like the
something
overall,
about
like
Riviera.
the rough or like the green grass.
Yeah, there's something about I had to go back and look at my notes, but there's something about either the rough or the greens that makes it another one of these tournaments. I wonder. Let's go look at Data Golf and see what they say about like their course fit history or whatever, their course history stuff. Because I always kind of curious as to like how. Riviera. Let's see what they say about Riviera.
I got it up here on the screen share. It looks like a relative importance. It's around the green.
Around the green,
the most
that
important
makes sense.
Bit. Yeah. So it's like it's an easier putt, or am I reading this wrong? Yeah. So it's
you're right. Yeah.
Easier putt, easier drive, accuracy. And then it's all about getting in around the green. So it's a chipping game. Chipperson.
Chip. Why can't I find this? I don't understand why they don't have. I was looking for, if you go to their course history tool on Data Golf, they usually have like the percentage, like how closely, where is course history most predictive? But for some reason, I don't see, on the drop-down screen, you can usually find Riviera, but I don't see that there. So I don't understand. Oh, the Riviera Club. There we go. So, yeah, another one. The Riviera Country Club ranks also pretty high in terms of course history. Let's see what we got here. True strokes gained. Cam Young, who was my guy this week, who's only played 4 rounds, but he's got the highest in terms of true strokes gain history at the Riviera Club. Adam Scott's up here, DJ's up here, Victor Hovland's up here. So yeah, lots of ball strikers. Morikawa, that motherfucker. Shoffley, of course, who's also a California guy. And then let's see what's his versus expectation. Cam Young again. So I guess I'm going to light some more money on fire next week and play Cam Young and Morikawa again. But the field for next week, the field for next week's going to be just like this. Like, it's going to be basically a fucking major.
Well,
loaded
I
field,
saw it at 20 million. This is another one of those. They bumped up the purse. It's like $20 million purse. So like, there's a bunch
designated
of
event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of those $20 million purses, I think, just draw guys in. Back to Tiger is in the rounding this out here. Back to Tiger. I'm not probably putting a huge exposure on him metrically, but I probably will, just like you said, just as a good guy tax. I'll go play him like to finish in the top 10 or something. But
Yeah.
I mean, I watched him, and like I don't watch a ton of golf. I'm really kind of getting more into it, as we talked about. Like I watched him limp through some of those ones. He came back where he was like limping. I'm like, man, I don't know. I could see a
Painful.
situation he withdraws like after 2 rounds. Like if he's not playing well, like I'm out. I could see that happening.
It's painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really sad to watch. I mean, you and I, we grew up watching this guy dominate. I mean,
Greatest
like,
ever.
it's really, dude, it's really fucking hard to watch this guy. It's really hard to watch him, man. It's really hard to watch, but be nice. It'd be fun to see. It'd be really fun to see him kind of come out of nowhere and kill it. But we'll see.
Anyway, buddy, I promised I'd get you out at 6, and it's already 6:10. Rom just tapped in. Scheffler's about to do the same as things in the books. I won a whopping $12, which I'll now go spend on a 6-pack of, I guess it's domestics for me tonight for the Super Bowl with that $12. So we'll see where that goes. But thanks for jumping on. And as always,
all right, man,
get back to us Tuesday night, 9:30 Eastern. Ngandu and I will give you a preview of the Genesis, where we're going to play Tiger and how much money we're going to light on fire. Please tune in and check that out, or watch us on our podcast or replays on Wednesday. Till next time, we'll make sure all of your models finish in the 95th percentile.
I won't make it easy for you now. You got 2 minutes of my time, and I don't really break too easily, but I'm worth it.